Hi, everyone. Great to have you. I know that there's people joining from all around the globe for LaterCon. We're so excited to get into this panel about micro influencers. I'm joined with some wonderful people here today who I will be throwing to introduce themselves in a moment. But to kick things off, my name is Grace Murray. I'm the VP of Strategy at Fohr. We are an ambassador marketing company. We do influencer marketing. We do ambassador marketing. We have a platform. We also have end-to-end white glove services, and we really specialize in long-term, thoughtful, human influencer marketing. We work with brands like Sephora, Dyson, Best Buy, and we also have an amazing free platform for influencers to be able to join and track their analytics and hopefully get some brand partnerships as well. So super excited to have you all join here today. And to kick things off, let's get started with some other intros. Lily, let's throw it to you.
Hi, everybody. I am Lily Yange, and I am a content creator that's based in Toronto, also a fashion television lifestyle expert. I do everything and anything. I kind of base all of my content with inclusion and diversity. I speak very highly of that on my platform, and I have been in the game for a bit now, and hopefully I can share some wonderful tips for you all.
Awesome. And let's go to Matt.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. My name is Matt Mullenax. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Huron. Huron's a men's personal care and grooming care business. We're based out of New York and super excited to be here.
I'm so excited to see you all and excited to chat on all things micro influencers. And it's a great mix here today because we've got Lissette and Lily from the influencer or creator side. We've got Matt from the brand side. And I'm kind of from the platform/agency side. So we're coming at it from all angles here. This complex, strange, weird, and wonderful industry that we are working and living in. Lily and Lissette, I'd love to throw to you first in terms of, as content creators, we have such a huge variety of brands listening, right from small businesses to much more established ones. So would love to hear from each of you what you really think about when you're assessing whether or not you want to be working with a brand who's approaching you.
For me, when a brand approaches me, it's really important to see that their values do align with my values, and that it's not, especially when it comes to inclusion and diversity, that it's not about selecting somebody to meet a quota. So a lot of the times, I've actually even looked at mood boards before I even look at budget, and I'm like, nope, it's a cut because I don't see any representation at all in any aspects. So it's really important to have a brand that aligns with inclusion and diversity when it comes to my work.
And that's a great point about even something as specific as the mood board is such a huge indicator of the way that a brand is approaching how they're working and what they're doing. So I love that call out because I think that these practices need to manifest in every single step of the process. And that's a great, really specific insight. And for Matt, for you on the brand side, how are you thinking about how you ultimately select influencers that you're working with? From the brand side, is it a similar process or is it different for you?
We are also trying to identify the values that this content creator stands for. I think for us, what's kind of top of the food chain is how we think about relatability, which is how relatable is this creator to the audience that they're creating content for. I think for us, it doesn't do brands any good to work with someone who may be pushing 12 new products over the course of 7 days, right? That then your kind of feed looks like a billboard of sorts. So we'd rather identify creators who are going with fewer but deeper partnerships to understand, what are the values that they do stand for? How do they see themselves playing in the ecosystem? And would we be a good fit for them? So I think relatability is one of our first filters. Secondly, which is a very common tool to assess fit by, is engagement. So rather than just pure play likes or comments, like what is the percentage against base? Oftentimes for us, we're looking at creators who may have between 5 and 10,000 followers. So these are not huge bases, but how engaged is that base with that particular creator is something we certainly look at. And then I think something for us that might be a little bit more granular than others, we really look through the lens of, would we actually give this person equity? If this person is kind of tasked with telling our brand story, with understanding the nuances of products, and being able to speak about the product and the brand in a very organic but powerful way. I think for us, that's really, really important. So, for us, these creators act as an extension of our team. So I think assessing the fit in terms of would I actually extend this person equity actually allows you to think about kind of the legitimacy and the actionability of these creators a little bit deeper.
Equity, the ultimate payment. Look at that. That's amazing. You touched on a lot there. I'd love to dig back in a little bit into the relatability aspect. Something that I find so fascinating in the industry is the dynamic that creators have with their audience and how hugely that varies from person to person. And I think about, we've had such a swing away from aspiration and into relatability if we zoom out at a kind of macro culture level. But Lily, I've seen your content and how you speak to your audience, and you're, using this kind of speaking directly to camera versus holding your audience at an arm's length. Do you think that dynamic that you have with your audience impacts your ability ultimately to drive their purchase decisions or their behavior in ways that someone who's maybe holding them a little bit more at an arm's length might not be able to?
Absolutely. For the most part, I'm very blunt because I'm pretty protective of what I call their coins. So if I'm not going to spend the money on it and I don't see the value in the product, you're not going to see it. There's a lot of things that I don't even share because I know that I'm not as passionate about it. I don't love it. I don't organically talk about it.
Lily, that is like music to our ears. I mean, I think about when we think about working with a creator, literally our first point of interaction is, let's not talk about anything. We're just going to send you a ton of product. And then after you've had the opportunity to use the product, let's re-engage. Because the consumer today is way too smart and they can see right through something that is pure play transactional.
There you go.
Something that I learned from James at Fohr actually was this quick idea that when you're about to do a partnership with a brand, it's smart to kind of tease it in the unbranded way, right? So if I know I'm going to work with this tinted moisturizer, I may unbox it and say, I'm so excited for what I'm going to create in a few weeks. And that, again, builds a little bit more of positive, more authentic momentum when your campaign goes live versus just seeing that one post in time, right? Which I know we want to get away from. But when you're out of that control of doing multiple posts, it's really nice to just talk about that organic, authentic reaction before even doing the sponsored content.
I think too, Matt, what you hit on about the first touch point being sending the product and asking someone to actually try it and see if they enjoy it is something that sounds so obvious, but is so missed a lot of the time. The way that this industry works and the speed that it operates at, and how in depth the briefs have gotten over time as well. We've talked a lot at Fohr about the fact that in so much influencer marketing, you really don't the influencer wouldn't actually have to pick up the product and try it and experience it because the brand is holding the reins so tight with the messaging and kind of scripting it out word for word. And so it really does create this end result that doesn't have the audience in mind at all and doesn't consider the fact that these audiences are different. These creators are different person to person. Lissette, I know you've talked a lot about, and we've talked a lot about, the benefits of working with micro and nano influencers versus much larger influencers. I'd love your thoughts at a high level on what you think the key benefits are versus much larger audiences.
I think it really boils down to that engagement piece, and little shout out to Fohr and Later, the power of micro influencers or the power of influencers in selling. You can see those trends of at the nano and micro level, you have higher engagement. And I think it's a combination of the more you grow, the more your audience starts to disperse, right? So there may be some people who become inactive over the years. Maybe people who followed you 5 years ago and all of a sudden they're not really aligning with your lifestyle anymore. Totally fine. So I think it's that fresh and nurtured community that you've built as a micro influencer. I think the second piece too that I always love is that a lot of micro influencers have very special niches, and I use that word with caution because we don't ever want anyone to fit into a box, but you just have a little bit more of a specialty, right? The same way Lily was describing her platform, you know what you can go to for Lily. You know what you can go to with me, because when you're at that micro level, you're a little more specialized, versus as you grow, you just become almost like a multimedia platform. A lot of the people that I work with, I always joke and say, you're kind of like your own digital magazine. But when you are a nano or
Absolutely.
micro influencer, yeah, you're basically like that person who really wants to pick up 17 magazine, first one I thought of, they're always gonna buy you. But as you grow, you're just Vogue. You're hosting the Met Gala. That's fine. You've got that big presence, but you may not be the thing someone's reading under their covers at night. So I really love that about micro nano influencers.
Just to add on to what you said, Lissette, with being kind of a walking magazine or your platform, I always tell anyone that ever comes to me about growing their brand, it's you have to look at it as in this is your resume. So if you're going to take everything and anything, chances are it's going to be really confusing. What are you? I guess what are you trying to deliver your audience with? So it's really important to know you don't have to be a niche, but it's really important to have an idea as to where you want your brand to lead you to.
I think another thing that I really think about a lot as it relates to micros and nanos versus more established or macro influencers is just how much there is to learn for brands. If you're putting all of your eggs in one basket or a really big expensive basket and you don't have a lot to play with yet, it's either going to work or it's not, and you don't really know how you're going to decide if it's working or not, because maybe you don't know yet how you're measuring success. You only ultimately have a handful of content to repurpose versus being able to see your brand through the lens of so many different people and so many different people's experience, and having all of those assets to repurpose. And I think that beyond even just the assets, brands, as we look to the future of what brands are, it's so much less about what the brand is saying about themselves and so much more about what the creator community and what the customer community is saying about them. So we've touched a little bit on engagement, and Lissette, love the shout out to the report. So there is a report that we pulled together from Later and Fohr that really digs into the metrics of engagement, reach, saves, performance, all of the metrics, from nano up into macro and mega. And at a really high level, it's something like, I think 4% for, this is averages, 4% engagement on Instagram for a nano versus less than 1% for a mega macro. And it really is just a kind of gradual, it's a pretty clear line of like you're starting small, engagement and reach is a lot stronger, and then it wanes a little bit over time as your audience grows. But as far as actually boosting that engagement and being able to, if you're working on a brand partnership and the brand is really focused on engagement, I'd love to hear any kind of tactics that you implement or that you have seen brands ask you to implement to try and boost that engagement.
I would say definitely the more you can engage your community in the campaigns, the better. So for example, we talked about, teasing it up, but could you add interactive stickers, polls if we're on Instagram? Could you crowdsource? Like if I was a more style forward creator, I'd probably have my community select outfits with me before the campaign, right? So H&M sent me a lookbook, help me pick an outfit. And again, you just want people to rally and celebrate with you. So the more you can get your community involved, the better.
Absolutely.
100%.
We really prioritize persuasion over performance. So of course we want performance, we want strong engagement or strong clicks or strong saves or views or whatever it is, but we want to make sure that we're driving those metrics for the right reason. If we're promoting, a piece of jewelry, we don't want all of the sentiment to be about the jacket that they're wearing. So I think that's a really important principle as well to bear in mind of, if all of the performance stuff seems really overwhelming, honestly, some of the biggest brands in the world are still confused about their measurement strategy. And if you're a small or medium-sized business who isn't sure yet, pull it back to the human lens and remember that this is about persuasion and not just performance. This is a hot topic in the influencer marketing space. There really isn't a standard go-to of the exact rates that any person at any given level should be paid. And I know it's a pretty intimidating space for brands to jump into as well. So would love any best practices or perspective from the creator side on what brands should be thinking about when they are looking at pricing.
So I actually developed a checklist calculator because I feel like we forget how many things are involved in all of this. And that's where with pricing, it's not one percentage of your follower, because at the end of the day, I see it in three categories. It's the placement costs. So yeah, the size of your community does matter, but you also have the production costs, meaning all the things that are going into this. If it's a 5-hour project, I'm pricing way higher than something I'm shooting as a selfie and posting as a story, right? So it's that production cost and thinking of what goes into that. But then third is really the value of you being used in this way for the brand. So, aside from things like usage of your content and being exclusive to a brand, I think you really have to consider how much am I as a platform, as a creator, as a personal brand, valuable to this partner, and kind of tally all that up. And there is never going to be a one perfect number. I get a lot of DMs from people saying, can you just tell me one formula? And I'm like, listen, after you add all these things up, you need to have trust in yourself and ask, does this feel good? If I got this paycheck, do I feel happy and do I feel well compensated? Let's go there. And then, of course, there's always going to be some back and forth. Don't be afraid. And from the brand side, no is actually not the worst case scenario. It may just be, it doesn't work out,
Happy price is the best probably way to explain that, right? If you feel good about this, take it. If you don't. And for brands, I think making sure that they're approaching any negotiation with each of those factors in mind. If you're giving that value, communicate that value. Say what you would typically do. Absolutely. And why you're doing it. Show that intent. But thank you everyone for joining today. This is fantastic. Micro influencers are the way forward.